He thought he could embarrass her into leaving. He didn't know who she was. The showroom smelled like leather and newness. Glass and chrome caught the afternoon light and threw it back in confident flashes. Salespeople moved with the smooth assurance of people who sell status. The floor reflected shoes and conversations, everything polished and clean. Leona Carter stepped in with a quiet purpose. Her suit was exact, her bag closed. She paused just inside the glass, taking in the room the way someone checks a map before walking a known route. The receptionist looked up, then looked away. A sliver of a smile, practiced and small, passed over her face like a ripple. "Appointment?" she asked, as if politeness could thin the air between them. Leona named the group. She gave the name of the company, the division, the person she was there to see. The receptionist's expression tightened. Fingers flew across a keyboard, a half-hearted search. "We don't have anything under that name," she said, as if the absence could be blamed on a system. A man leaned back in a chair 2 feet away and smirked into his phone. Nearby, a child trailed across a display, and someone laughed at a private thing. The room watched in small pieces, eyes that slid to the side, lungs that avoided protest. Silence gathered like dust. Then Evan Rhodes arrived, floor manager, smile trained and authority rehearsed. He stood between Leona and the desk as if the space itself needed guarding. He repeated the script the receptionist had begun, louder, with a showman's cadence. "Ma'am, we have no record of an appointment. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." It wasn't a request. The words were clipped, measured. His tone folded into something colder when she did not move fast enough. He stepped closer, chin thrust, voice sharpened. Customers shifted in their chairs and watched the exchange like a slow accident. No one reached to stop it. "You don't have to make a scene," Evan said, voice low enough that only the nearest could hear, but loud enough that others leaned in on the syllables. "People around here don't. Well, this isn't the place for—" He left the implication to do its work. A sales associate made a little sound, an amused, complicity-laced chuckle. The security guard hovered, a polite shadow. Leona stood still, shoulders square, hands folded at her side. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. Her face stayed composed, almost unreadable. That calm made the spectacle look sharper, arrogance against restraint. Evan's hand slid toward the guard. "Please escort her out," he said. The guard, bored, efficient, moved to comply, fingers at the small of Leona's arm as if to shepherd a child away. The contact was firm enough to hum in the air, but not violent. The receptionist pursed her lips and watched. People whipped out phones. A murmur rose like static and then dampened, as if by mutual agreement. The polished floor carried the sound of shoes and hushed conversations. Leona turned toward the exit with the guard guiding her. At the door she paused, looked up at Evan with a single steady look and said very quietly, "You're making a decision you can't undo." Evan laughed, sharp and sure. "Like I said, just business," he replied. He pushed the moment into finality, and the room exhaled. The hum of commerce returned, as if a blemish had been wiped clean. Sales resumed in staged smiles. The receptionist returned to her screen. The guard took a position by the cars as if nothing had been unsettled. "If dignity matters to you, hit like and stay with this story." Outside, sunlight spilled onto the pavement and the air felt ordinary. Leona stood at the curb while the guard made sure she left the property. People moved past, some stealing looks, most pretending not to see. She did not raise her voice. She folded her hands, held herself the way someone keeps a fragile jar from cracking. Then, as calmly as she had arrived, she turned and walked back through the glass doors. Minutes later, she re-entered the showroom flanked by Marcus Hale, the regional director, an official figure, suit precise, presence with the gravity of policy and oversight. Conversations stalled. The music in the background softened, as if someone had turned down the world for a second. Heads turned. Evan's smile faltered like a light bulb fluttering before it dies. Leona crossed the room and stopped at the desk. She placed one card on the polished surface. The sound of it settling was small, a faint, crisp click, but in that silence it sounded immense. Marcus watched the card slide. His face was unreadable, then immediately intent. Evan leaned forward, jaw tight. "Who is this?" he began. Marcus picked up the card. He read it slowly, each syllable marking a pulse. The letters named the company the showroom belonged to and, below it, her title. Chief Executive Officer, Parent Automotive Group. The room went quiet in the way a theater does when the wrong scene is realized. People swallowed. Evan's color changed, first in his neck and then spreading to his face. For the first time in the day, he seemed small. He opened his mouth and closed it. The receptionist's hands hovered uselessly over the keyboard. The guard cleared his throat, suddenly aware of the wrongness of his earlier compliance. Marcus set the card back down without comment. His voice was steady and administrative. "Evan Rhodes," he said, and the name had the weight of an order more than an accusation. "You're terminated effective immediately." The words landed, and the room reshaped itself around them. Conversation stopped mid-breath. Evan's mouth worked. He sputtered an apology that came out thin and obvious. "There's more to this," he began, but Marcus did not let the sentence finish into a defense. "Your actions are a violation of company policy," Marcus continued. "We have zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior on the property. Security who physically removed a customer without proper cause will also be dismissed. The receptionist who negligently failed to confirm an appointment and then participated in denying service is let go as well." The reality of what had been for sale, reputation, careers, the neat lines of privilege, shifted on the showroom floor. Termination letters were not read aloud. They do not need to be for consequences to be felt. Evan's authority unraveled in a public thread. He was escorted to a private office where the formalities would be taken care of, his dismissal immediate, the corporate response visible and decisive in the space where the humiliation had been performed. Leona continued to stand at the desk, the picture of composure. She did not watch them go. She did not gloat. The room had been the stage for a small cruelty, and now it was the stage for a correction. Marcus approached her, respectful and direct, apologizing on behalf of the company and acknowledging the harm. His words were practical: removal of staff, policy review, retraining. But they were also the kind of language that tries to stitch an exposed place back together. Leona listened. She accepted the apology with the same measured demeanor that had carried her through the humiliation. When she spoke, her voice was low, but clean. "Silence protects cruelty," she said. The phrase landed without flourish, an observation more than an indictment. "Remember that." She gathered her bag and turned. People watched as she walked past the rows of polished metal and glass that had earlier witnessed her disgrace. Some faces were ashamed, some simply curious. A few phones lowered. The air felt different, less smug, a little unsettled, because the room that had watched without intervening had been confronted with the cost of its silence. Outside, Leona stepped into sunlight again. She walked away without looking back, the lines of her shoulders relaxed, dignity intact. The consequences played out inside, immediate, institutional, visible. The man who had used his position to humiliate was no longer in his role. The accomplices and staff had been dismissed on the spot. The company, under Marcus's oversight, began the work of accounting for what had happened on its floor. This was not a triumph of vengeance. It was a reminder that systems can sometimes correct themselves when leadership chooses to act, and that the quiet restraint of a single person can force a room to confront its own complicity. Leona's calm did more than survive the moment. It revealed the truth of the moment, who had power, and how it was wielded. If this story landed on you, share your reaction in the comments. Subscribe for more stories that center dignity, accountability, and the quiet strength that changes a room.